History buffs, political buffs, information buffs, this is your lucky day. You'll find all of the above at the Harry S. Truman Little White House in Key West, Florida.
Well, in 1946, President Truman tried to get a vacation. He went to the Bahamas, got seasick, went to Maine, and everyone who he didn't want to be seen with were insisting they have their photo taken with him. So he came to the conclusion he'd never get a vacation. Fortunately, Admiral Nimitz was in Key West inspecting this top-secret submarine base, and he gets back to Washington to learn the president has a hacking cough. He immediately speaks up and says, I have a perfect warm vacation venue. I'm sure it'll cure your cold. Truman flew into Key West, spent 1 week here, fell madly in love with the place, left Key West without a cold, and promised whenever he got tired, he would be back. 12 weeks later, he's back.
He's back. Wow, and this is what, the rec room of Mr. Truman?
This is where President Truman relaxed in the evening. When he first came in 1946, he had a staff of 16. By 1949, the staff had grown to 59. And so the Navy realized things are getting a little crowded, so they expand this room by 10 feet.
Ah, yes, Harry S. Truman. The president, during the end of World War II, so fell in love with Key West, Florida, that he said if he could, he would move the Washington, D.C. White House here.
Each November, December, and each February and March, the president would come for a vacation, sometimes a week, a couple of weeks, a month, and he ran the country from Key West, Florida.
So this is the table that was a gift to President Truman.
Yes. In 1949, our cabinet shop here on the Navy base presented this table to the president. It's made of mahogany. It has built-in chip holders. The ashtrays are 4-inch brass shell casings. A little bit of early recycling. And while the president did not smoke, many of his staff did, and so this would have been the days of rum and you know, drinks and cigars.
And so the restoration of the Truman home in Key West took place, and everything is nearly 100% like it was back in the 1940s.
Now this is a very interesting room, to say the least. With the bar and everything, he was the big drinker, was he, President Truman?
Well, the president certainly enjoyed a bourbon now and then.
Yeah.
Every evening when he was playing cards, he'd have a glass of bourbon. And an interesting story was that when he would arise at 7 in the morning, he would come downstairs, have a glass of orange juice and a shot of bourbon.
Everything is so authentic, right down to the wallpaper.
He got more work accomplished here than in Washington because it wasn't the constant disruptions and interruptions that happened.
Wow, in every room we enter, I feel like I'm back in the 1940s. This is what the parlor?
This is the president's dining room.
The dining room?
When all the leaves are in, 16 people can be seated in this room. And this room is actually about 98% original.
I know there are a lot of chickens, banty roosters, that type of thing around the island.
Yes.
How about these? Are they any significance?
No, well, not really, but yes. They're not Key West roosters. The decorator was a very wise historian and knew President Truman would pick up on this little detail. The original symbol of the Democratic Party was a white rooster.
Really?
Long before there were donkeys, there were white roosters.
The bedrooms in the Truman household were interesting, to say the least.
And in the White House, did you say they slept separately because they didn't want to bother the wife?
That's correct. This is Mrs. Truman's bedroom, and she shared it with her daughter, Margaret. Mm-hmm. In the big White House in Washington, there was a protocol that said the president's on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so it's not polite to awaken his wife, so there was always a separate bedroom in the big White House for the First Lady.
Truman was often seen in his private life wearing this hat. While on the job, he would often be toting this briefcase. Many thought the president was carrying top-secret information in that briefcase. Truth is, he always carried his 78 RPM classical records around in it.
I know his daughter Margaret was a singer, but he was also a good pianist, I hear.
Yeah, when Truman was 6 years old, they discovered he had some incredible musical talent, and so for 10 years, he studied to be a classical pianist. And as an adult, he played Mozart and Chopin from memory.
President Truman said he didn't mind a big entourage following him to Key West, but he wished they wouldn't put all their luggage outside his bedroom door. No calling Truman a stick-in-the-mud president. He was front and center, hosting an annual Wildest Shirt contest.
You know, Bob, I was noticing these little cubby holes that you have here. There's one on one floor and one up here.
Right.
What are they for?
That's a permanent position where the Secret Service would be assigned. One's at the front door guarding the president, one's here at the second floor if anyone came up the stairs.
Truman worked endlessly even when he was here at Key West.
And the significance of this room, this is the living room, piano, office.
President's office,
Yeah.
That's right. This is where he ran the country from. President Truman worked constantly. The only problem was he felt his staff needed a vacation, so they all kind of pretended to be on vacation. Truman would invite his staff here, and he'd say to his men, you need to go fishing, you need to go to swimming, you need to go to Cuba. And then every night he would take a load of work up to his bedroom and work into the wee hours. His men at the same time thought, well, yes, we're working, but at least the president's resting. And so everybody pretended to be on vacation, and he finally confesses to his cousin Ethel Newland, I'm signing my name 200 to 600 times a day. The president never gets a vacation. The job of the president always follows no matter where you go.
Ah, yes, the man from Missouri who made it all the way to the White House, who always said the problems end with the president, that the buck stops here, but always remembered his beginnings by printing on the back of that sign, I am from Missouri. For Life to the Max, R.J. Fritz, your political correspondent reporting from the White House.
Life to the Max is brought to you by Lifetouch, photography for a lifetime.